Hey, we are born into our families, we are born into our society, and we're even born into our parents' financial reality. What most people don't understand is that just because we're born into a specific family or a specific socioeconomic world doesn't mean that's where we have to end up. Being born poor isn't your fault. Dying poor is. A majority of people live life by default. They accept the cards that they were dealt and offer no resistance to mediocrity. Here on the Traveling Investor Show, we talk about how to live life on your terms and create the life, finances, and relationships that everyone dreams of. Join me, Nitzan, your host, every week on the Traveling Investor Live Show, where we demystify the art of mastering your mind, body, and wallet. And this show today, we have Ishveen Anand, who's the CEO and founder of Open Sponsorship, the largest online platform created to facilitate sponsorship agreements by connecting brands with rights holders, such as athletes and teams. Ishveen was listed as one of Inc.'s top 100 female founders in 2019 and Forbes 30 under 30 in 2015. She's also captained both the college netball and cricket teams while attending Oxford University. She's raised over 1.3 million to date from notable VCs, 500 startups, Oxford Angel Funds, and NBA All-Star Baron Davis. And we're going to talk today about the philosophies of what makes a successful business and what every CEO needs to know to become successful. So without further ado, let's welcome Ishveen Anand. Hey, Ishveen, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thanks for having me, Nitzan.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the accent. Where's it from?
I was born in England.
There we go. Awesome. Fantastic. I've been there a couple of times.
You
Great
like
place.
it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Been several different places outside of London, and it was just a lot of fun. I just couldn't get over the weather. You know, I remember one time I was traveling to Israel in July, and I had a stopover in London, and here I am in my flip-flops, shorts, and t-shirts. I thought it was going to be summer, but it was pretty cold and rainy. I learned
You
my
have to
lesson.
check the weather hourly in England to make sure that you're I've got your umbrella, your raincoat, your flip-flops, sunglasses, everything.
Everything, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. And where are you located now?
So I split my time between London and New York now. So I'm in London right now, but I split my time.
Oh, very cool. Very, very cool. Awesome. So Ishveen, so tell us, where were you before you created Open Sponsorship, and what was the catalyst to creating something new, right? You know, I'm sure you've heard of this book, Red Ocean versus Blue Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of actually did that. You went and you looked at what was going on in the marketplace and you said, let me create something similar but completely
Yeah.
different, right? So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I started my career as a management consultant, and obviously as a consultant you're kind of trained to look at problems and break them down, simplify them, find solutions. And then so I did that for a few years, which was awesome. Love that experience straight out of university. And then I became a sports agent, right? And I'm basically selling and buying sponsorship, and fell in love with sponsorship as a form of marketing. But I suppose my consulting days were making me go, well, this doesn't feel that efficient. I'd remember I was trying to do a deal with a brand and they were like, no. And I worked in cricket at the time and they were like, we're not interested in cricket. That's not our strategy. And 3 months later, I think it was, they did a deal with a competitor team. And I remember thinking, why did they do that deal with them? How did I not know about this? This doesn't seem very logical. And so I think I was always challenging status quo, like what you're saying, like the blue ocean strategy, thinking, how can we do this better, smarter, etc. And obviously tech has helped a lot to cause disruption, but this was 2009, 10, 11. And most people were like, just do it, just do your job, don't worry about it, don't think too much, just do what we've done for 50 years. And so I suppose, fast forward, I was like, why do we have to do what everyone else has done? And that's how kind of the idea came about. So full disclosure, it's not like I really wanted to be an entrepreneur or run my own company. I suppose wanted to do things in a better way. And no one was really acknowledging that there was a better way to do things.
Right. Sometimes we fall into entrepreneurship without even looking for it. Right.
Yeah.
We come up with a great idea and then we're stuck with this amazing idea, and we say, well, how do we bring it to life?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
how did you bring it to life?
So, I mean, at first I just I incorporated the company and didn't really do anything. And I was like, should I do this? Should I not do this? It seems a lot of work, technology. I don't even know what I'm doing here. And then really what happened is I would wake up every morning and be nervous almost that like I was going to read an article that someone had done this idea. And that's when I realized like, I should really do this. Like, I'm actually like obsessed with the idea of it. And I'd be upset if anyone else did it. Now, obviously, once I launched, I realized that people had done it and pivoted or failed or whatever else. Of course, you're not the first one to think of an idea. But at the time, I was like, no one else is solving this problem, and I want to be the first. So I went out and, anyone who's tried to build a technology business as a non-technical person will have had this pain, which is, where do you find engineers? How do you even know who's good and not good? Because you have no idea like what they're talking about really. So it took me a couple of iterations to find my now technical co-founder, Ron, who's awesome. And so there was a bit of pain along the way. Like we built clunky websites and clunky products and we didn't really know what we were doing. But once we found the match, it was amazing. And now, we build product together, but I look after the business side and he looks after the technology side.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I guess through your, I saw your promo video as well, and you said that you were a sports manager, correct? A sports agent.
Yeah. Well, I suppose there's kind of two types of sports agents. So you have contract agents who are like the lawyers who do like the team stuff, and then you have sports agents who do all the marketing and sponsorship side, and that was obviously me.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's how you got into the whole sports world, and you figured out, let's connect the athletes with, I guess, social media influencers or people that have a product and they can connect together, right? And and on your app, it's funny, you're like, yeah, it's like a Match.com or an Airbnb, right? Where you can just flip through, swipe left, swipe right, and pick your athlete and pick your product and make the match. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So we've taken a lot of lessons from, I'd say recruitment is probably the number one, where, as a brand today, whether you're a local business or you're a Walmart, right? And we work with both sides of that. And if you want to find an athlete, like where do you even start? Mostly someone who knows someone, but like that doesn't make really sense. And when you think about recruitment, back in the day, it was the same thing where you'd be like, okay, I want to go out and hire someone. Let me go find someone who knows someone who knows someone. Whereas now you would never, ever hire someone without putting up a job posting on a LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever it may be. You would go through applicants. Maybe you would outreach a couple of people personally. You would have a whole process. And so we really took a lot of those lessons from recruitment, similar dating, real estate, any really good marketplace. And we were like, okay, how do we bring that into our world for sponsorship? Let it be more scientific and process driven than just like, let me put my finger in the air and see who's a good fit for my brand.
Mm-hmm. Right. So as the CEO and as someone who's fallen into entrepreneurship, can you share with our listeners some of the rules or regulations or standard operating procedures, what they need to do to, figure out if the idea that they have is a good idea, how to bring it to life? What does a CEO need? Because I heard you say something really, it was key. It says, as a CEO, you have to be ready to learn something that you don't know.
Oh yeah. Every 5 minutes, to be honest. Yeah. I would say there's two things, right? There's obviously what you said, which is like, do you have a good idea, right? Like, does this idea have legs? And then I'd say the bigger question is, do you have the ability to be on this journey? Because inevitably the idea that you come up with, well, firstly, it's not really an idea. What you want to do is like, what is the problem you're solving, right? And is it a big enough problem? Is it a problem you're so passionate about that you can like invest the next 10 years of your life doing it, and like all of your brain power, all your conversations, all your shower thoughts, your dreams, everything on this like pain that you're solving. So I'd say firstly, like, don't worry about solutions or ideas. Like, people are like, I've got this great idea, and it's like, okay, cool. Well, what's the problem you're solving? Like, who cares about that problem? So I think that's the key thing, right? Like, do you care about the problem, and is the problem big enough to solve? And if the answer to that is yes, then great. And the reason I say that is because there's a high chance that your solution is going to change. Like, especially if you assume that the average person runs a company for like 10 years, like, what you think the solution is today is not going to be the solution in probably a year's time. Like, even for us, right? Like, I wanted to build the Airbnb for sponsorship. I firmly believe that sponsorship, it's a $60 billion industry. It's awesome. Anyone who does sponsorship always does it again and again and again. It's addictive. Yet people don't come in, or it's not data driven, or whatever else. I want to make sponsorship efficient, accessible, etc. I didn't know that I was going to do athletes. I didn't know I was going to go so hard on social media. The first time someone called us influencer marketing, I was like, what are you talking about? That's got nothing to do with us. I didn't know that we would have a mobile app, to be honest. Like, I didn't know a lot about what we built. I just knew I was obsessed with the problem, and I believe that I could like fix it. So I'd say that's half of it. And then the other half is, honestly, like, are you going to stick it out? Like, the opportunity cost of being an entrepreneur is so high. Like, at least for the first few years, you underpay yourself, you overwork, you never really switch off. The highs are really high, but the lows are really, really low. It's personal, right? When people leave, it's personal. When people don't accept a job offer, it's personal. When people don't invest in you, it's personal. Like, it takes all your might to do it. Of course, the highs are high. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it is cool, but there's a lot of, like, there are easier things to do, to be honest. So yeah.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. There's a great phrase: persistence beats resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have to be persistent, consistent. And I love what you said, right? About the problem. Is the problem big enough to solve? And do people really care about the problem, about the solution?
Yeah.
Right? This is something that that every entrepreneur has to ask that question before they get involved in any business, right? And then, your passion, just like you said, you got to have a strong enough why and a strong enough belief. And I'm with you on that. Is the highs are incredible, the lows, sometimes will kick you on your ass, and it's up to you as the entrepreneur, as the sole person, to put yourself back up and dust yourself off, and and keep moving forward when against all odds.
Yeah.
Right?
I always say, like, people have this phrase, like, it's like banging your head against the brick wall. I'm like, in entrepreneurship, it's like banging your head against the brick wall, but you have to get through. Like, you have to make it, like, there's no turning around. Like, you just have to either get through, or obviously if you give up, then you're no longer doing what you're doing. So it's this, like, you're doing the impossible. I mean, like, the audacity to think that you are going to build a business that no one else has ever built before, like, that no competition has built, that no big company has built, like, it's pretty outrageous. So you can imagine that hard work that goes into actually making that happen.
Sure. Entrepreneurs are a special breed of people, right? We think we can do it all. We think we can, like you said, make a change in the world. And the crazy people who think that they can make a change in the world and go after it usually do make a change. I mean, here's your company, and you're, it's an amazing concept, and it's doing wonderfully. And obviously, with your accolades of being, top 100 female founders in 2019 and Forbes 30 under 30, that really shows that you've said you've done what you said you were going to do.
Oh, well, thanks. I mean, the accolades are great. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to lie, that's lovely, but as most entrepreneurs will realize, like, it's what happens inside the org, and, like, your team and whatever else. So, I think one of, like, my biggest problems that I don't think we celebrate our wins enough. It's like, okay, we've done this, now what's next? And so it does feel great, but it always feels like there's so much more to do. And of course there is.
Absolutely. I'm in real estate and in acquisitions, and I have my show, and I do my coaching and mentoring as well. And every time I get a client, or every time we buy or sell a property, my wife is going, yes, let's celebrate. I said, I don't have time to celebrate. I gotta find the next one, the next property, the next deal, the next person, but it's just, we don't have, it's not that we don't want to celebrate it, but for us, it's just, let's keep the momentum going. right? Let's not take our foot off the gas pedal and kind of relax. We have to stay committed and focused, right?
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the most important things that someone starting out in a business and entrepreneurship, what kind of mindset, where do they have to be to really, make something successful?
I think what's really important is to try and, and I did not do this. So, I know it's like thinking is like against everything that an entrepreneur is. Like the reason you're good at being an entrepreneur is because you think with your gut, but then you actually have to not think with your gut and you have to think with data and market and like take your time, which I'm terrible at. But I'd say, I think it's really important to think about the kind of business you want to build, right? Like an entrepreneur can be someone who gets to work from Bali remote. They're a freelancer. They make enough money to live comfortably, and that's it. And they never want to build a team. They don't want to, they're not trying to sell something. Like they're not trying to sell a company or exit. Like that's their life. So you've got that. And then on the other side, you've got entrepreneurs like Mark Zuckerberg, right? Of course, or like Jeff Bezos or whatever else who, from the get-go, it's like, I'm going to go out and build $1 billion, whatever, company. And obviously you've got everything in between. And so I think firstly is like, who are you trying to be? Like, what do you want to be? Because that, like, there's no point hiring two people. Like once you start hiring people, you're a manager and you have to deal with management things. If you're going to hire, then you might as well build a proper team. But if you're an entrepreneur who wants to be a solo entrepreneur, then that's really sexy as well, right? Like, the freedom and whatever else. So I think like, what are you trying to build here? And it goes back to like, how big is the problem? Can you solve it by yourself? The realization that like, if you're trying to build a bigger company, like at some point you stop being an entrepreneur and you become a CEO, and then you just become like a slave to your team, which is how I feel. But like the point being is that you have to just really think about, why are you getting into it? Who do you want to be? What do you want to outline for yourself for like the next few years, and just make sure that lines up with like the kind of the problem you're solving and whether you can do it. Because there are so many different types of entrepreneurs. I mean, as I said, like Jeff Bezos is an entrepreneur, and so is like my friend who lives in Bali on the beach.
That's nice to live on Bali on the beach and be an entrepreneur, right?
Exactly.
We should go visit your friend.
Exactly.
So, we as entrepreneurs, we go out there and we have this urge of building things, or like someone like yourself who kind of fell into it. Where was your passion? Was your passion in really creating, like you said, this app to connect people? Was your passion in building something that somebody else hasn't built? Where did your passions lie to help you build and, raise 1.3 million and hit Forbes 30 under 30? Were these some of the things that when you started out, you had in the back of your mind that this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah. Good question. No, I think my passion was definitely product. Like I was using Airbnb and Uber and LinkedIn at that time. So this was like late 2014. We were starting to use, and I was living in New York at the time, like ZocDoc. Like you were starting to hear about these marketplaces that were just making your life amazingly easy. Like, even I remember at the time Uber was like doing the Uber Black, and it was like for rich people and whatever else. But the point being, it was like, people were talking about, oh my God, you don't have to wait on the street anymore, like in New York for a cab. Like, so I started realizing like, oh, this is cool. Like my personal life is getting better thanks to technology. But then what happened was my day job, I was doing, sponsorship deals. I was literally like, there was actually a time where I was working for a client and we were looking at doing a soccer deal in Colombia. And I got on a flight, went to Colombia, had a meeting, and the team guy, CEO was like, "Oh, how much you want to pay?" And it's like, "No, like what? Where are the packages? Like, what are you selling?" "Oh, whatever you want." And I was like, "This is not going to work." The client's like, "Yeah, we'll maybe revisit in 6 months." And I was like, "Shit, but in 6 months, everything's going to change." And then, so I was like, wait, why is this so complicated? And then in my personal life, shit's just getting easier and easier. And so I really honestly, like, I turned around and I was like, why is there not an Airbnb for our industry? Like, that was as simple as it was. And then once I went after that idea, I just literally wanted to be like, to the point that when we first launched, we had the same business model. We were like 3% commission from both sides. And then obviously I was like, this is never going to work. Like, and you start learning and learning. So I think I just loved, and I still love, the idea of using technology. And it's not just using, I really love solving problems. And I think technology has made it infinitely easier, smarter, simpler to solve problems. And I just think that's like one of the coolest things. If you can take technology and go, hey, I can solve this real life problem using it, like amazing. And the scalability of it, that's what gets me really excited. Like, you create a feature, we can get that out to like thousands of users tomorrow. Like, that's awesome.
That's incredible. Yeah. Scalability, right? Would you say that delegating, no, I'm just going to say it that way. Do you think delegating is a key component to scaling?
Yeah, 100%. Like, 100%. I actually pride myself. I think I'm a really good delegator, but obviously that comes with downside as well, right? Like, you need to, I've learned over time, you need to be really good at setting expectations if you're a delegator. But I would prefer, that means you have to do the work in advance, because if you do the work afterwards, it just creates like bad communication, bad lines, and whatever else. But like, personally, there's no way that you can scale without delegation. And as a business, if you don't delegate, what you're doing is you're stopping your team from being like actually giving their all. And you're therefore just like, it's only you and your ideas, which is like, gosh, like, that's the worst thing that could happen. I mean, I do rate my own ideas, but like, how many years can my ideas take the company, right? At some point. And then you know, it's crazy to me when people bring in, especially management or senior people. Like, if you're going to bring someone in and pay them like 6 figures, and you're not going to let them like do their thing, like it's great, honestly. And it means that I can sometimes like switch off and have a Sunday off or a Saturday off. Like, why would I not want to delegate? Never really understood when people are not good at delegating.
I agree 100%. I think being able to delegate is huge. That is the only way to scale your business. You know, in any business, in any company, in anything that you're doing, you can't do everything. You know, it doesn't matter if you own a clothing store, you can't be the person who's taking inventory. You can't be the salesperson. You can't be the stock person. You can't be the person in the cashier. You can't be the security. You can't do everything all the time.
Yeah.
But as a CEO and as the owner of the company, you need to know how to do all those things, so that when you're delegating it to someone else, you know if they're doing a good job. You can talk to them and in the language for that position and what they need to do, so they can understand. And I like what you said also in your video, is that if you don't know and you're trying to delegate, you won't have the same respect from the people that you're asking to do the work, as if you were able to show them and have them understand that you know what you're talking about.
100%, which is, it goes back to that expectation setting thing, because often what happens as entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs is you're under immense pressure. You wake up and you're like, oh shit, we need to do this, or we need to do this, or let's try this. And I was like terrible at this. And luckily my technical co-founder, he always had like this like unsaid rule, which was, if Ish brings it up like 5 times, I'll start listening. If it's once, twice, 3, 4, like, forget about it. So I'd like noticed that he would just like not pay attention to half my stuff. And now I'm obviously much better with it, because I've seen how much time I can waste by going off on journeys. So what happens is, when you delegate, you wake up and then you're like, shit, we need to do things a different way. And then you get frustrated that they're not doing things a different way. But it's like, well, did you communicate? And is that easy for them to do? And do they really believe in it? So that's why like the expectation setting is really important, because one is, you can say, okay, this is what I want from you. And if I do want to change direction, I'm going to first have to change the expectations, represent them. And by that point, half the times when you have an idea, if you need to start putting work into it, you're like, oh, I'll do it later. And then you like deprioritize. It's very easy to like send someone a text message and be like, we should do this. But if you had to like put out a business plan for it and like create a whole new model, you'd probably give up yourself on that idea. So I feel like, force yourself to rather than just being crazy and like changing things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When you have team members, like force yourself to like be a little bit more strategic in how you present. I've had team members join and I'm like, are they doing a great job? Are they not? And then I'll look at the expectations we set. I'm like, actually, they're doing a great job based on expectations. So it's just my inner feeling that's like worried about, and it could be anything. It could be like they turned up late for a call and you're suddenly like, oh my God, are they the right person? And we've all been there and done that. Whereas like, if they're hitting their expectations, then just let people be.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel the same way. One of the things that I do is I also own a property management company for apartment complexes, and I tell my property managers when we are getting a new property, I said, "Look, I don't care if you work 2 days a week, as long as the job gets done and you're doing what you have to do, and the residents are paying the rent, maintenance calls are being taken care of, the property looks great. I don't care if you're working 2 days a week and then you go playing for the rest of the week. As long as the expectations are being met, that's fine." We have a question here. Can you point to individuals who help shape and direct your focus?
Good question.
We only ask good questions on the Traveling Investor Show.
I say definitely my team,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think people often look outward for like inspiration, but I think, I always say, like, my job is to make sure that none of my team have bottlenecks. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, going back to like scalability, like if they can do their job, then great. Like, but if, for example, a salesperson feels that they're not getting enough leads and we should be going out and buying LinkedIn Sales Navigator or another software, like that's my job, is to make sure that they've got everything that they need. So I think like my internal team really like they help to make sure that I know what I'm doing and focus. Investors do that because they set you milestones and things like that. Interestingly, I even think competition in a way, because you start really thinking about, well, where do I want to be? You can't be everything to everyone. And so when you start analyzing competition, you're like, well, do I want to take your market share or do I want to stay away from that? So I think that's quite interesting. I've definitely got people I talk to a lot about work, whether it's like advisors or mentors or people I just, peer group guys. I wouldn't say the thing there is like, I don't know if they focus you because they end up helping you on the questions you're asking. So that's quite dangerous, right? Because it's like, this is what's on my plate and they don't really know everything else. So they're only going to help you with what you're thinking about. So I do think yourself is pretty important. And again, like as entrepreneurs, sometimes we're not the best at like planning and organizing and looking too far in the future and whatever else. So like, Stephen, our VP Finance Ops, is huge for that because I'm like, what are our Q4 goals? Just tell me what they are, and so I know. And so again, like trying to stick the plan helps to focus you.
Right, absolutely. You mentioned something about what are our Q4 goals? How important is it, and do you in your company set goals?
Yeah, for sure. So the hard thing is that super easy with salespeople, right? Like, these are your goals, sales manager, these are goals, account managers. Then we've got engineers, like one of their goals, right? We have a data analyst, like what's it, like CEO, what's my goal? So what we try and do is individual goals where it helps. And obviously if you've got team members based on like commission, of course, they've got goals because you need to know how to pay them out. So that's easy. And then we have company-wide goals based on our plan. And the main thing there is like, we want to be able to, it's easier when you're not spending a lot of money to not be as obsessed with the goal. But when you start ramping up, like we're hiring 2 or 3 new people about a month, when you start doing that, it's really important that we don't run out of money in our bank. And so that's when it becomes super important. And now I have to say that I would not have been able to do this without our VP Finance. Like I don't have I studied economics at Oxford. Like, it's not like, I'm not putting anyone down in this entrepreneurship group. I just think it's really hard to be in the weeds and strategic. It's like really difficult. You can't do them both. And so for me, I like to zoom out and think like, okay, what's coming next? But if I have to look at spreadsheets and go, how much money did we spend this month? Like, you end up just not spending it, which is what I did. Like my biggest lesson from early on is we didn't spend money fast enough. We didn't grow fast enough. And that was because I had to do both. And so you're like obsessed with like, oh, we should make money this month. I shouldn't have done that. I didn't need to, but yeah.
Spending money fast enough. Some people, people listening going, what? Spending money fast enough? I can spend money like crazy. How can you not spend money fast enough? But it's true. If you don't feed the growth with ideas, with goals, with finances, with an infrastructure, you'll never get to where you want to get to. You'll never achieve your goals fast enough, right? You really have to focus on it. But there's also a point where you're spending too much.
Yeah.
Right.
Or not spending too much. I wouldn't say that. I'd say not getting the return on your spend.
The ROI. The ROI.
Yeah. So right? that is the reason why you want your plan and go, am I going up? Okay, so think about it this way. If you're hiring people and they are exceeding their goals, you're like, great, I can hire more. I should hire quicker. Or like, what can I do here? If they're under, then you have to solve it before you keep hiring. So it's just really important to be measuring everything that you're doing.
Everything. Measure everything. Your metrics. Your metrics are important. What you can measure, you can adjust, and you can build and create with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what's next for you? What's next on the agenda?
Yeah,
where are you taking it?
We are we're in a really good spot right now. So, we are just closing out a new fundraise, and then we are growing. So mostly sales and marketing, expansion into new areas, obviously a bit more investment into product as well and integrations. So really exciting stuff on the horizon.
Awesome. Very, very cool. So let me ask you this about the actual app of combining. So you find people who have a product, have something that they want to sell, and then you connect them with an athlete who likes the product. What kind of products?
Yeah. Interestingly, it's like, I would say that sports marketing is relevant to everyone, right? Like real estate. Athletes are huge in real estate. They love it, right? They have secondary houses, they have houses where they live, they have houses where they play, whatever else, right? And if you think about local marketing, if you're very famous, very rich, you probably move to LA, New York, San Francisco. The most famous person in Florida, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Kentucky is probably an athlete because, they live there and they play for the local team. They've got the most money. They're super influential. They're the tallest guy. They stick out when they walk down the street, whatever reason. So on a local basis, athletes make sense. If you are marketing to men and you are thinking about how do I influence men, sports, right? Like, women may have beauty bloggers and fashion bloggers. And obviously I would say female athletes are great, but when you're marketing to men, sports is like the number one thing. The athletes are the number one influencer. So basically, anytime that you're thinking about a marketing channel, I would say, why are you not using sport/athletes, right? So that's one. What we do is, so on one side, we have athletes sign up, create like a profile, like a LinkedIn profile or a dating profile. Those athletes can either sign up themselves or through their agencies. So we work with CAA, Rock Nation, all the big agencies, small agencies. They create a profile. We pull in a lot of data about them, like who's talking about real estate, who's talking about blockchain, who has high engagement, who has Hispanic followers versus African-American followers, whatever it may be. That's on one side. On the other side, we have brands come in, like you said. Yes, absolutely correct. Our primary target is definitely CPG, D2C brands, right? Like products that fashion, apparel, jewelry, health and wellness, supplements, like the kind of things that you would expect athletes to naturally have. Having said that, we've worked with brand companies that have come in and they're PPP loans, and they're like looking for athletes who want to promote the fact that our service can help you fill out PPP loans, because they're like, we're focused on the African-American community and athletes speak to that community. Or we've had athletes like really interesting. I mean, the amount of deals that we've done, like the cross section is huge. Like whether it's like pet brands or it could be like diabetes awareness, right? Like I was speaking to someone the other day and they were like, do you have athletes who've had prostate cancer or like been close to it? Of course we do. So it's like and then what happens is the brand will put up a campaign, a bit like a job posting, looking for athletes who want to be a champion for prostate cancer, or looking for athletes about to buy a new house, or whatever it may be. We're offering $500, $5,000 free product, $500,000 in exchange for an appearance or social media or a video testimonial, whatever it may be. And then basically all of our athletes and agents will apply to work with you. And that's like step one. And then we do everything else, the deal management, contracts, payments, etc.
Wow, that's awesome. There's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's not just, hey, I have a yoga mat.
No. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's great. So we're actually running out of time. We've got a minute left. Being the traveling investor that I am, 3 places on your bucket list that you would like to travel to that you haven't been to yet.
Oh, wow. 3 places. I'm not massive a bucket list person because, as you can tell, I just do it when I want to do it. But I'd say I definitely want to go to Russia. Growing up in England, like the mystique of Russia, and I'm a bit scared about it, but like I'd like to go to Russia. Where else would I like to go? I'm Indian, and so again, like I'd like to go to Pakistan, just because I suppose I'm basically picking controversial places that people tell you are scary, but obviously they're not scary. They're just like the same but different. Say Pakistan, and then I haven't done as much of South America as I'd like. So Brazil would probably be on my list as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yep, great places to visit. I've been to Russia and I've been to Brazil. I have not been to Pakistan yet, which is somewhere that I do definitely want to go visit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Israel's amazing. I've been there a couple of times, so nice home country.
Nice. Yeah, it's great. Tel Aviv is an awesome city.
Yeah, well, I think I prefer Jerusalem actually, just the culture and everything else. But yeah.
How long ago were you in Israel, in Jerusalem?
About 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so pretty close, because Jerusalem went under a huge change. The new city with the tram that goes through the middle of the city. There's a nice tram. It used to be buses and cars, and now they blocked it off for pedestrians, and they have a nice tram. I love Jerusalem. Jerusalem is one of my favorite cities in the world because of the I guess the dichotomy of it, where you're sitting in a coffee shop that was built by the Crusaders or by King Herod or someone. King David walked down the street, Jesus crossed over here, and there's so much history there that is just mind-blowing. And to see the modern world with the ancient world together is really cool experience.
Yeah, I love it. It was really cool.
So Ishveen, how can people find out more or get in touch with you to get some sponsorships and get some athletes on their brand?
Yeah, no, awesome. Thanks for asking. So go to our website, opensponsorship.com. It's free to sign up. Check it out. And then find me on Twitter or LinkedIn. Yeah, I'd love to hear from everyone.
Awesome. Ishveen, thank you so much for being here, coming all the way across the Atlantic Ocean from London. I appreciate your time and appreciate you, and keep kicking ass. It's awesome.
Thank you. Likewise.
Well, travelers, it's been fantastic. We're going to be here same time, same place, somewhere on Spaceship Earth next week, where we continue to demystify the art of mastering your mind, body, and wallet. I'm Nitzan, the traveling investor, your host, and I'll see you next week somewhere on Spaceship Earth. Take care.